Hello everybody. This is just a real quick video of introduction to Excel. Now, the next topic, if you're reading this, or rather watching this video, is going to be Excel. So I figure I'll give you a little rundown of what it is. Now, first and foremost, it is essentially just a big fancy calculator. It does calculations, it does charts and graphs. Access can do some calculations, but it's more meant for just holding and searching data. And, you can print out some reports based on that data. Excel is really just all about the numbers, the formulas, and things like that. Out of the two of them, Access is probably the hardest to learn, simply because of all the database stuff that's not in all the other Microsoft applications. And it's a good introduction to how databases work, how you have to design them and grade them, because you can't just click File New in Access and boom, you're done. There's a lot of thinking and thought processes that go along behind them. That's why it's probably the hardest, and why there's literally just full classes on database design, and that sort of thing. Excel also has full classes involving it. In fact, you can go to a bookstore and buy books, multiple 100-page books on how to do different things in Excel. The difference between those two, especially for students, is simply Excel is probably more widely used. You probably can't go to a business or company and you find a place where they're not using Excel to some form or fashion. Almost every financial department probably has Excel files somewhere, simply to keep track of everything and, to make reports and whatnot. It's also probably a little bit more useful for students in general. When I first got my job teaching, I decided to go ahead and, I know how much my salary is every month, because I get paid once a month at the end. I know what my bank account currently is. I know roughly what I have to pay every month, and I had student loans at the time, so I could set the price for that. So I just popped this all in Excel, and I could use this little autofill button here at the bottom right hand corner of this, if you can see that. Zoom in a little bit more. That little thing, once I filled in the formulas, I could just pull it down, and voila, I could see what it would be like in the next month, the next year. What if I adjusted the payments a little bit more and saved a little bit more, or spent a little bit more on them? How much would my bank account be, in December, around Christmas time? March, maybe I want to take a summer vacation or something. That allowed me to see a whole lot of stuff and kind of adjust to it. So, there we go. So, that is essentially Excel. So let's go through the basic menus. So File, of course, is just like most of the others. You can print, you can save, you can export it. You can get the set info and whatnot. You can even come over here and Home tab it. See all your old files and stuff that you opened. And of course, that's where you go to save and open other files. Home tab is the same. You'll see about half of this is roughly the same as most of the other applications. PowerPoint, even Access has some of the things up here that are similar. Word, all of this is essentially straight from Word. You can adjust fonts and sizes and all that good stuff if you need to. Not as... it's used a little bit in Excel, but the focus tends to be on the formulas. We've got a specific formatting section. And this is for actually formatting the numbers and making them look nice and pretty, giving them dollar signs, percentages, commas, adjusting the decimal places. You can always click the little button at the bottom and get a little extra specific menu where you can go in and adjust things from alignment to fonts to whatever you want. There's formatting. Conditional formatting, just so you know, because you'll see it at some point. Particularly useful for highlighting things and changing the font colors. What this does is In my example earlier where I set up my bank account information here so I can see how much it was going to be next month at the next month. If I adjusted my spending, I could set these conditional formattings to highlight it in red if I was spending too much, or if I was going negative or something. Highlight it in green if it was greater than 0, or red if it was less than 0. You can go in there and set all those little options there, and this whole thing will light up and change as you change the numbers. And of course you've got some inserts and some sorts. The most used formulas are right here on the Home tab as well as an option to clear formats and clear cells. Each one of these items here being the cell. You'll see I've got my letters at the top and numbers on the side. So this would be A1, E2, D5, and so on. Now insert will be our next tab. And you'll see there's pivot tables. That's more advanced Excel stuff. So you won't see that in the first Excel class. We could also insert pictures, although I don't believe there's ever a time where we will do that in class. But if you wanted to insert a picture, you could. And shapes and icons and all these other things as well. Typically, you won't really be using this, at least in the basic Excel class. You will be doing charts, though. And all the charts are listed here. I need actual numbers before I can click on anything, but these are spark lines, which is basically a one-cell chart, kind of a little mini chart, whereas these would make a whole big chart that appears on the screen. So if I just put in some basic numbers here, I could make a little chart or graph, probably, pie chart. There it is. Nothing spectacularly fancy, but you kind of get the gist. And of course, I can also move it to other pages if I want to. I can even adjust the colors. Or I can just delete it outright with the delete key. Now, let's see here. Back to my insert. Those are the charts, graphs, and all those things. There are built-in equations and stuff. Rarely in early Excel we use those. Page layout. Now, if you've seen Word and PowerPoint, they have a design tab. And I think about the 2010 version of Microsoft Office, Word, PowerPoint had a page layout button. And that is where the themes and the colors and stuff used to be. Excel, they never changed it to a design because you generally, other than themes and colors, you don't really need it for anything else. So they decided not to, I guess, alter the menu. Word, and PowerPoint especially, have design tabs to change all sorts of colors and things for those because they're certainly more used for that. Whereas Excel, it's kind of bland. You can't add colors and things like that, but generally you're not going to. You can also turn off these grid lines if you want. These are the lines that separate each cell. But again, there's really no reason to turn those off. Now, zoom out. There we go. Formulas. This is essentially where the whole point of Excel. Now, for a basic Excel class, you'll be using pretty much these, but there are a couple others you may use. Let me rearrange this a little bit so you can kind of see. Bob. Oh, my caps lock is on. Bob, Jim, or something, and total. So I want to get the total of this. And I'm going to write a couple of numbers here. Let's say, just so we can kind of see a couple of things. Okay. 10.9 or something. Oop, that's not a number. And a big old number like that. Alright. First things first. Notice here, it cut off. 3, 4, 5, 5, 6. 3, 4, 5, 5, 6. We don't see the whole number. It's there. The problem is our cell here is a little bit too short, a little too bit thin for us to see it. Now here, I typed in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let's zoom in a little bit more so we can see it. And you'll see it's displaying a slightly different thing. Oftentimes in my class, I'll get people raise their hand, and they will tell me the cell keeps changing everything. It's not keeping the number I want. Now, again, this occurs when there's not enough room to display everything. If I want to see everything, I can double-click this and drag it around so I can see everything. Now, in the case that we do some formatting and some other stuff, which, for example, currency, you may end up getting something that looks like that. The hashtags, or pound signs, or if you want to use their technical term, octothorpe. You can Google it if you don't believe me. Use it in a sentence with somebody. Octothorpe. Whenever you see that, that generally just means that the column's not wide enough. You just simply have to make it a little wider. And then usually it'll go back to normal. So if you see that little error, don't freak out. That's generally what it means. Now, of course, there are a lot of formulas built into Excel. The sum would be one of them. And I could sit here and just total that up and press enter. And it will give me the total of everything in that column. I can do the same thing here if I want to. Now if you look right here, that is the formula. Formulas always start with an equal sign, and then SUM is sum, the formula. We have these little parentheses, and this right here is the range. It's where the formula starts checking and where it ends, basically. And I can change that range to pretty much whatever I want. I want specifically those. You see it highlights the numbers that are selected. I press enter, it gives me the total. Now, I often tell this story in my classes, but my first semester I ever taught, I had one specific guy who was literally right next to my desk, and he would do absolutely no work. He would sit there on, Facebook and send messages and stuff. And we got to a test where the test asked him to get the total of these. Now, instead of doing what I just showed, he pulled out a calculator, typed in the numbers, and did this. And I recall asking him, what's he doing, pulling out a calculator, and he's like, I'm finding the answer. This is the guy who hadn't paid a single bit of attention in class. He did not pass, just so you know. It helps to pay attention. But that is technically right. That is the total here. But if I change any number up here, now that's wrong. I have to change it. Now if I change any number up here, it automatically changes there without me having to do anything. That's the point of Excel. If you're just going to write in the answers like this, then use a piece of paper. There's no point in using Excel. I can hit auto sum, and you see it just pops that up, and I press enter, and it'll give me the total. And if I change any number, it changes automatically. We can also do this with the average, the count, the max, the min. Average would give me the average, like so. And there's a whole bunch of others up here in case you need to use them. Accounting numbers, formats, formulas. You've got pay rates. You've got, if you wanted to do some actual programming into Excel, like if the state is listed as Tennessee, use this tax percentage or this formula. If it is Arkansas, use this tax percentage or formula. You can actually program it so it uses different formulas depending on what you want to do. That's a little bit more advanced, but it allows you to do a whole lot more stuff. And of course, you got math and trigonometry. And even more, statistics, engineering, cubic, all that sort of stuff is built into this. Reason that there are multiple 100-page books on how to do things here. And of course, you could always just make up your own if you wanted to. I could just say equals this plus that, and then press enter. And look at that. It has given me 2 plus 11 is 13. And if I change a number here to 6, well, the formula automatically changes. I can even use this bottom right-hand corner to copy this down if I want. And what you see is copy the formula. This is called the autofill tool handle, and it's really useful for formulas and things like that. It can also be used for example, January. We'll go with Sunday, and I don't know, 1, 3. So if I pull this across, very specific things when it comes to dates, times, and I have a number here, 1, 3. You can see it's skipping 1, so if it knows the pattern, it might follow it. If I went, 0, 5, 10, for example, then it should be able to pick up the pattern of that as well. And that's where it's really useful. It can save yourself a ton of time if you know how to use that. It can also be a bit of a nightmare. A lot of these sheets might have a title or something like that, or a heading. If I grab total, for example, and pulled that across, there we go. It'll just overwrite the word because there's no formula, there's no one of these words or anything like that. It understands. Formulas, it understands. A word, it will just copy the word over and over again. That brings us to how we interact with the cell as well. I can click on it once, and I can move my cursor over the little red-green line, and I can move it around. Or, of course, I can go to the bottom right-hand corner and pull it across if I need to. I can double-click, and now I'm inside of it. And I can change whatever value's there. Or I can just highlight by just clicking and dragging. There's about 3 or 4 different ways to interact, and this usually trips a few people up a little bit, particularly initially. But I can come over here and adjust how kind of some of this looks a little bit. Let's just say I wanted, a certain color or something like that even. Or if I don't like it at all and I just want to clear all the formatting, I can do that as well. But that's formulas, effectively. Data we can import, we can export. What that means is I can take this Excel file and dump it all into a text or a PDF, or take it in from a text or PDF, or take it in from a database file. That database, you may have built, you can dump it into an Excel file and then do all sorts of formulas and stuff on it if you need to. Generally, we're not going to be using this too much. Occasionally, we might import from another Excel file, which you can do that too. But this allows you to do a whole bunch of different stuff with, between all the applications. There's a lot of interconnectivity between Microsoft Office applications. Of course, you can spell check, thesaurus, all that stuff. We can even change the view. And you can do that up here. You'll see there's normal, there's page break, page layout, and all that. It's also down here in the lower right-hand corner. If I can, well, you won't see it on my screen because my screen's a little too wide, but it's in the lower right-hand corner over there. Same setup, it's just little tiny buttons that look like that. And let's see, and that's roughly it for the most part. You may or may not have some extra options. It depends on the version. But that is what you get from Excel. So if you have any questions, comments, concerns, or anything like that, feel free to let me know. But that's kind of just a real quick outline of just introduction if you don't already know how most of this works. And of course, during all the assignments and stuff, you hopefully will know how everything works after all those. Because you'll be doing a little bit of what I showed here, and then some, actually. So, any questions, refer them to me. Otherwise, see you later.